So this was an interesting recess here. We mentioned that Congress is back today. I wrote a Substack last night on this. Most Democrats who were in the news the last week, it was because they were getting attacked about Chuck Schumer or their lack of a backbone for taking on the president. But two members of Congress, the senior senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, and AOC, hit the road and drew massive crowds. I mean, we'll talk about kind of what it means, but Sean, I think you'll be the first to admit to get 30,000 people anywhere as a politician is hard. I mean, the only person that I've known who's been able to do it consistently is Donald Trump. Obama had a brief period of those huge crowds in like 07 and 08, but then it kind of petered out and 12 was a slog. So, to me, this is great. Like, I think the fact that AOC and Bernie Sanders, I don't believe they will be our nominees. I don't believe they will truly leave the party, but they are authentic. They are showing fight. They're taking on both, kind of Trump and their own party. Like, hey, you guys got to get in the game. They are showing that it is possible to kind of be bold and out in front as a Democrat, where we primarily have been in the fetal position the last, year. So I actually think it's great. I think they are tilling the garden that whoever our nominee is or the leaders in 26 can kind of take this mantle and kind of build on it. But Sean, what's your view of Sanders and AOC and their tour this last week?
Were you trying to imply that I'm an expert on crowds? And
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, sorry.
All right, no, look, I think the funny thing is, I love this. The idea that Bernie Sanders is the biggest draw with AOC. I get it. I mean, to me, this is the fundamental existential problem: is that you've got a guy who is an avowed socialist that even in the interviews that he did over the weekend talks about, I caucus with the Dems, but I'm not a party. And he talks about the party being broken and doesn't want to be an actual member of it. So I look at this and go, and AOC, the problem the point that I would make to Democrats is, I get it. He might get you fired up and all this, but that's not a real solution. Right. I mean, like, I'm sorry. Like, if you think that Bernie Sanders or AOC is your answer, God bless you. Good luck with that. But that to me is the fundamental problem: is that they are not. They are serious players in the base. Don't get me wrong, and I will get that. I give you that, and they draw a lot of people and they get a lot of enthusiasm, but they're not serious in their solutions. Right. And by the way, Ro Khanna, who was just on the show, we had him a week ago, basically doubled down and said, yep, our leadership is out of touch. Yep. This is but I feel like, they don't have a real solution. And that's going to be ultimately the problem, is that there's no one who can rise up and say, all right, I'll be the adult in the room with real solutions, real answers. I was listening to some of these people talking about how they wanted Chuck Schumer to fight more and get some. I mean, one of the quotes in the paper was, he didn't get anything for keeping the government open. And I was like what? What did you want him to get? Like a souvenir? Like a Trump doll? Like what was it that you wanted him to get? Because these things, and having been on the flip side of them, on the Republican side, you don't generally get a lot when you're the people fighting to close the government down.
And I think, look, that's the issue of how Schumer handled it, and the fact that, as Pelosi has always said, like, if you want something from me, like, make me an offer. And I think this is where Schumer, frankly, pissed away a month. So did Jeffries, not coming, to the table to say, here are like one or two things that we need to have, and telling the base, right? Like, this is the condition of our vote. The base wants everything, which
what they got, though?
Totally unrealistic.
They got DC funding. So, and I'm not kidding. Like, they wanted the District of Columbia carved out for home rule. And I'm like, that's what you fought for?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, to me, I get it. This is why I said before, I don't disagree with the idea that you weren't going to get much for this, but the strategy behind what Schumer did, if I were I'd be really pissed. I'd be like, you literally blew this all away.
Well, I agree. I think, though, but I do want to go back to Sanders and AOC. And that is that one of the things that we've talked about is there are increasingly Sanders voters leaking out of the party and going towards Trump. Some of those working class, union voters in the Midwest, the RFK vote that is not too dissimilar from the Bernie Sanders vote. And so I agree that Sanders by himself is not the future, or I hope is not the future of the Democratic Party as our standard bearer.
The funny thing is, go ahead.
But we do need to bring them back into the fold. I mean, I've said this before, and Sean, you have too. Winning campaigns both motivate the base and attract the middle. It is not an either or where you tell your base to go F themselves. And so I think we have to look at Sanders and say, look at that energy, look at the crowds. The way a lot of people, and this is little apples to oranges, but when Trump started drawing those crowds in 15 and 16, the number of people on our side who said, oh my God, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. And Republicans were like, my God, the base can't dominate us like this. But it turned out Trump had a kind of a magic of blending the two. And I hope that our future leaders can build on Sanders and AOC's energy and enthusiasm, bring some of these people back in, and have a more, I guess I'll call, polished message that is more appealing to the middle as well. But we need this. And I actually think it's great. If we had neither, we'd really be.
Yeah. I mean, look, you need to go through the family fight so that the tussle and the back and forth, every party does this out of power and kind of says, who are we and what do we want to care for? The thing that's interesting is the big takeaway, as far as I was concerned, out of that Sanders ABC interview, aside from the fact that he tried to get up and walk away because Jonathan Karl's a gadfly, is when he was asked what he could say nice about Trump, he said, I think he's doing a great job on fentanyl and the border. I was like, holy smokes, you just completely undermine. The problem is his big message is this oligarchy.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the American people are willing, in my opinion, to give a lot of latitude if they feel like things are getting done, right?
Yep.
As long as the bills are getting paid, meaning like, hey, my, stuff's happening. And right now the border is secure. Fentanyl's going down. Like people go, yeah, all right. If this is what it takes, not everyone, a lot, poll wise. And so I think where Sanders, like the thing that I was so fascinated by is that he gives a huge hat tip to Trump on the border and fentanyl, which is a big deal.
Yeah, no, totally. And now we're going to go into reconciliation here, and we'll see if kind of the tax cut message and stuff perhaps is more resonant with the electorate. But you're right, Sean. Generally speaking, oligarchs, is a little cringe inducing, or more than a little, for some Democrats.